15 years ago, text posts were synonymous with blog posts. Since then, social networks like LinkedIn and X or Twitter have started to replace blogs as primary channels for text posts. The reason is simple. Blogs don't have a natural distribution. When you write one, nobody knows about it. Blog posts shared on social media rank among the content with the worst engagement rates. So the most logical question, why not simply share blog posts on socials, is very quickly rebutted. The way forward is to post text posts directly on social media. Now, suppose you have a blog with a lot of posts. In that case, the best way to utilize it is to take these posts, adapt them to social media attractive form, such as split or shorten them, and add an intro that sets a stage or poses a question and post them on social media. If you don't already have a blog, consider whether you even need it if your profession isn't one of the very few where they are still popular or necessary, or if you aren't from a small country where your blog post can rank well in Google search results. A good reason to have a blog, even without considering SEO, is to demonstrate your knowledge to your website visitors. Posts on LinkedIn and X don't have to be as long and as time-consuming to write as blog posts. The main advantage of posting text posts on social media is the distribution. Apart from your network, the reach of your posts can be amplified by likes, comments, and reposts that gets your content in front of a wider audience. Images. Images will only work for you if your profession is heavily visually based and you can make attractive images to convey what you created. Other than that, the potential of images is very limited. They simply can't compete with video. We'd also like to caution you against a concept that's popular with lazier content creators, but is very uninteresting and has low engagement rates. Text shared as an image, often complemented by either a picture of the subject in question or the content creator himself. Some A-list influencers can successfully pull this off because their face is an attention magnet. But that's not your case. If you already have a significant audience on Instagram, you can take a picture of yourself and put anything you post on LinkedIn in the image description. This won't help if you're just starting out, but it can work nicely if you already have an audience. These images with super long text descriptions are becoming increasingly popular. It has to be said, though, that this approach mostly works for good-looking people. The rest of us will have it more difficult. We're certainly not telling you to not share images. Statistically, posts with images have better engagement rates than posts without them, but they usually only play a complementary role. They're not the main reason people engage with the post. The main reason is the text post itself. Images can also be well utilized as YouTube community posts or in featured Instagram stories, but we'll get to that later. Videos. The younger your audience is, the more inclined it will be to watch videos. It's no coincidence that TikTok, the latest social network phenomenon, is purely video-based. Another essential attribute of TikTok videos, or their equivalents on other social media networks, is their short-form format. But don't fall into this short-form frenzy. Longer form videos are doing incredibly too, especially if they are about more complex topics that can't be properly examined in 60 seconds. In fact, you can easily do both, and we'll get into that in detail later. Videos can be divided into two main categories: videos with your face and voice and videos with your voice only. Videos with your face and voice don't need much introduction, but voice only maybe do. Explainer videos where you show the clips or images of what you are talking about are pretty popular, but they take a lot of time to create if you want to make them engaging. Still, it would be a pity if the creator didn't take this chance for the audience to see him. After all, his main objective is to build his brand. Keep in mind, video is the closest thing to meeting a person in real life. The further you get from this, the more difficult it will be for your audience to build a relationship with you. If you want to go big on content creation, but don't like being on camera, you'll be at a big disadvantage. A solution can be getting someone you can talk to on the video with you, so you're not forced to talk to the camera, but to a real person. Podcasts. Old timers joke that everyone has a podcast these days. The entry barrier is indeed very low, and it's a popular option for those who don't like cameras or want to avoid dealing with video production. You can do a podcast either on your own, like a monologue, or with others, roundtable, or with a guest as an interview. The bad news is that launching a successful podcast isn't easy. 90% of new podcasts will not make it to episode 10, and only 2% of the remaining 10% will make it to episode 50. A common denominator of unsuccessful podcasts is no video, low production quality, and being too long with no good reason. Podcasts can be recorded in person or online. We recommend the in-person option, which also enables you to create an engaging video that will allow you to clip and share the most engaging parts of the podcast. Sure, you can record the video of your online podcast too, but the difference in quality is substantial. Strangely, the main listener acquisition channel for podcasts is video. Podcasts without video have a very hard time breaking through. Most people find podcasts on YouTube or through other social clips on other social networks, not on podcasting apps. Yes, many people listen to audio versions of podcasts, but usually it's after they find out about it through a video clip. Keep in mind, recording a video of your podcast will exponentially increase its potential and reach. Even webcams and phone cameras offer a very good quality these days, so there's no excuse for not having video. We can't recommend it enough. Quality over quantity. You certainly heard this principle in many areas of your life, and it applies to content creation too. Social networks operate on the principle of giving content a shot, showing it to a small sample of users, and using the data from their interactions with the content to determine whether it's a worthy piece of content that they'll show to many others, or something nobody cares about and can be safely buried. This means that only good content counts, but don't be mistaken. You cannot post hordes of poor content with impunity and hope something will hit the target. Poor content will harm your reputation and give your current followers a good reason to unfollow you. Even if some of it really goes off, people will be hesitant to give you a follow because when they take a closer look at you, they will see there's not very much beyond that. They don't want to have their timeline flooded with your attempts to go viral. Posting only quality content signals you care about what you publish and assures potential followers that when they see something from you, it will be good. Keep in mind, first impressions are often everything. And if people see well-produced content, you can bet that they'll be impressed. It doesn't matter that there may not be much of it. They don't need to see 20 videos to make up their mind. Content production. Whatever you publish, try to make it as good as it can possibly be. You will probably have to invest a couple $100s into equipment if you want your content to have a high production quality. But if you're serious about it, it's worth it. Now, we'll take a closer look at the most common content types and how to produce them correctly. Text. Always break down your text content into paragraphs. It will be much easier to read and less discouraging even to start reading. Use Grammarly to polish your writing. You'll be amazed at how much better your final output can be. Don't use AI to write stuff for you. It produces generic content that lacks originality, and some people have already learned to spot it. Instead, use AI to give you inspiration on what to write about and help you refine your text. For example, rewrite the sentences that you want to improve or compress multiple sentences into one. Audio. If you're serious about podcasting or producing videos, a professional microphone is a no-brainer. You can get a very good one for $100, $150. If you don't want to mess with your audio setup, make sure the microphone has a USB connection. A great option is a lavalier microphone that you can put on your shirt. It offers amazing quality, can be connected directly to your phone, and costs less than $100. And if you don't want to take this step, most phones have relatively good microphones too, but they are still incomparable to the standalone mics. In that case, use an online tool like Auphonic that uses AI to improve your sound. It works perfectly. Video. The biggest shock for anyone learning video production is finding out how important the light is. It can completely change the feel and the quality of the scene. We don't expect you to get a professional lighting set, so we recommend shooting your videos during daylight facing the window. If you want to give your videos a cinematic look, shoot at 24 FPS, which stands for frames per second, instead of the default 30 FPS. Cameras and some phones have this option, but you can also change the frame rate in post-production if you can do it. If you have ever wondered why movies look different than your videos, this is one of the reasons. A nice backdrop, the background that's behind you in the video, will also go a long way. The problem usually is the lighting of the backdrop. That's why many content creators use some ambient light in the background, like a lamp or an LED strip. Can you get away with just a phone? We know many of you won't go for the more professional setting right away. So let's also address a common solution using only your phone. Is it possible to create great content just with your phone? Yes, it is. But it will come with some limitations. First, it depends on what phone you have. The closer you are to the latest flagship model, the less of a limitation it'll be. And most people using only their phones are Gen Z influencers who use a selfie camera to record their videos. The visual quality is perfect. The concern is audio though. Sure, what you're saying will be perceptible, but nowadays people are used to having a higher quality level. Fortunately, it can be markedly improved with a lavalier microphone. A phone and lavalier mic is a combo that can get you somewhere. Then you must decide whether you're going to shoot horizontally or vertically and use a primary or selfie camera. Primary cameras have a pretty wide angle, so if you go for it, make sure your backdrop is wide enough too. Post-production. If you want to produce your videos at a higher level, you'll have to include some post-production editing in your content creation process. There are many things you can do, so we'll cover just the most basic ones you should consider. Cuts. Cutting out the parts of the video you had to repeat or don't like will give you more control over the final output. With the emergence of short-form video content, cutting out the silent parts of the video, even if they're just a second or two, will make the videos more dynamic and allow you to squeeze in more information. Adding text and images. Flashing text or images on the screen will help you to better communicate your brand, show additional information, and encourage the audience to take a desired action. You should also consider having your personal brand logo on the bottom right or the bottom left during the whole duration of the video. Audio and video sync. If you'll be using an external microphone, you'll have to replace the original audio from the camera with the one from the mic. This is called audio and video synchronization, and you can look up tutorials on how to do it with the software that you have access to. Keep in mind, to align your content with your personal brand, use the same fonts, colors, and graphic design elements. If you ever started actively posting on social media and generating content on a serious schedule, you likely had the initial enthusiastic period where you had countless ideas of what to post. After a month or two, you probably got to the bottom of your unique idea archive, and generating new content become a lot more difficult. The truth is that for most people, regularly producing unique content is unsustainable. Sooner or later, you reach a limit of what you can come up with. That's why a long-term content strategy requires what we call content templates. Instead of producing a completely unique piece of content every time, you develop a few templates to use as a structure and then create content within them. Keep in mind, you have to be able to create content for years to come. Templates. This concept is easiest to demonstrate using examples. So here are a few of how content templates can look like. First, 30-second vertical video where you'll address the most common problems your clients face. You'll spend 10 to 15 seconds explaining the problem and the rest by offering the solution. It requires a dynamic tone of voice and constant talking. An alternative to the latter is to cut out all the silent moments from the video. The video will have no background music and will be slowly zooming in while you're formulating the question. Once you start with the answer, the video will suddenly zoom out and dynamic music with beats will start playing in the background. In the end, you'll always say, "You're welcome," but in a way that these two words are part of the last sentence and you won't make a natural pause before saying them. 2, a long form text post that will be 300 to 400 words long and consists of 2 introduction sentences, 3 paragraphs, and 1 call to action sentence at the bottom. Intro sentences will start with the surprised face emoji. Each of the 3 paragraphs will start with a backhand index finger pointing to the right emoji, and the call to action sentence will start with a mailbox emoji. The post will pose a question based on an interesting statistic from your industry that will be formulated in the 2 intro sentences. The 3 paragraphs will offer your analysis and explanation of the stat. The call to action sentence will always look like this. I'm John Doe and I specialize in insert your field here. For more insights like this, sign up for my newsletter, link in the comments. The post will include an image with the visualized statistics and numbers you address in the post, along with the source of the stat, your brand logo, and your website. This post has to be always posted manually because immediately after that, you have to post the link to your newsletter in the comment section. Why so specific? You certainly notice that these templates are very specific. Well, that's the whole point. The templates are meant to completely remove most of the creative process. To use our first template as an example, you won't have to wonder how long the video should be, how long you should talk, what video effects to use when, whether, and what music to use, etc. Everything is set. The only thing you have to figure out is the question you want to address and the answer that you will give. After recording it, you'll edit it based on predefined parameters and the video is ready. To avoid any confusion, the word template we use here doesn't have to refer to a technical file on your computer that you'll use as a template. By template, we mean a predefined form of content that precisely states all of its parameters. Keep in mind, apart from avoiding the inevitable creativity crisis, templates also save you a ton of time. All you have to create is the filler content, which will have a predefined form and length. It doesn't sound like much, but it's a big deal. Your target socials. Consider the type of content and social networks most prevalent in your industry. This will set the tone for what you'll do. You'll have to prioritize since you don't have a 4-person media team all around you. Each profession and topic has go-to social networks. This is where your focus should be. This doesn't mean you shouldn't post on others. Yes, you should post there, but that's about it. It would be a shame not to put your content everywhere that you can. Just don't consider the trends or popular practices from non-relevant social networks when creating your content. Inspiration. When figuring out your content templates, don't rely on your judgment a lot, but rather, look at successful influencers and emulate them. Now that we discussed what your content templates should include, you'll know what patterns to look for when viewing their content. It would be best to take inspiration from someone outside of your industry so you don't look like a copycat. Some content templates are very similar across the industries, but there are individuals able to give it a spin that sets them apart. Don't sell all the time. Create content that provides value to your audience. Don't post about what you offer all the time. People learn to ignore this content. They care about stuff they're interested in. That's how you'll reach them. Demonstrate your expertise and make them want to follow you. You don't have to trumpet all over the place that you offer marketing consulting when it's already on your profile. It's fine to mention it occasionally, but not too often. You should write or talk about yourself only if it's connected to something that you did or that happened to you that provides value to your audience. This advice doesn't apply to a short call to action at the end of the content where you mention what you do and the action that you want people to take. Follow you, sign up for your newsletter, check out your website for more, etc. Repurposing content. Content repurposing, or what we like to call it, content recycling, works very similarly to what you're used to in the real world. The idea is to take something that was already made and use it as many times as possible by creating new instances of a given piece of content. You don't want to throw into waste something that can actually still bring a lot of value. In the case of content, the recycling process is very simple and quick, especially compared to creating new content. The simple rule. The main principle of content recycling is cutting and repackaging parts of longer content as new content. So the longer your source content is, the better. The best content for recycling is long-form video interviews, and we'll cover them in more detail in the following lesson. These parts, whether they're text, audio, or video that you'll clip, should cover a single topic that is sufficiently explored or addressed and provides value without further context. For example, without reading, listening to, or watching the whole source content. When publishing the standalone piece, you're free to brand it in whatever way that you believe will reach and bring the biggest audience. Don't worry about its relation to the source content at all. It's not unusual for one of these pieces to have more views than the source content with all the other pieces combined. Splitting and publishing them as new content is like buying lottery tickets. Keep in mind, people click on a video based on its title and thumbnail, so make sure you give them exactly what they expect. Looking for an outlier. Recycling your content also gives you a better chance of hitting the jackpot. Every successful creator would tell you that there was one piece of content that made them. YouTube's feature to rank videos of each creator by most popular is very handy here. When you check out a few successful creators and have their videos ranked by popularity, you'll see one or two videos with disproportionately more views than average videos. For example, the most popular video of creators who usually have 10 to 20,000 views per video can easily have 400,000 views. When you think about your favorite YouTube content creators, it's likely you first discovered them via their most popular video. This principle works across all other social networks. Keep in mind, having some piece of content blow up and reach tens or hundreds of thousands of people is usually a moment in a content creator's career that puts them on the map. That's why it's so important to be very diligent about recycling. You don't know which piece of content will do this for you. Scripted content. If you're producing scripted content, do it with clipping in mind. Structure it in a way that will allow you to produce the most clips of the highest quality. As mentioned before, keep in mind that clipped content can't miss a context. When you know you'll clip a certain part, make sure its main topic is clear and not referred to as it or something that makes it unclear about what it's about. When doing a scripted video, you can plan a couple of sections that you'll put special emphasis on with more dynamism and passion, or perhaps a witty way of articulating your point. It can be just 10 to 30 seconds, which is enough for a short clip. Example. Now, let's look at how exactly you can repurpose the content. For our example, we'll use an 18-minute scripted video monologue of you addressing some topic. Source content. Video. 18-minute monologue. Recycled content. Video. Clip 1 from the monologue. 3 minutes. Video. Clip 2 from the monologue. 5 minutes. Video. Clip 3 from the monologue. 6 minutes. Video. Vertical, clip 4 from the monologue, 20 seconds. Video, vertical, clip 5 from the monologue, 30 seconds. Video, vertical, clip 6 from the monologue, 25 seconds. Video, vertical, clip 7 from the monologue, 15 seconds. Podcast, audio version of the monologue. Blog, transcript of the monologue as a blog post. Text post, clip 1 edited into a social media post. Text post, clip 2 edited into a social media post. Text post, clip 3 edited into a social media post. Recycling one source content can make you 12 content clips. Share these on every social network relevant for a given content type. Don't be afraid. Some beginners are worried that publishing recycled content will annoy their audience and make them unfollow them. The worry lies in the assumption that their audience would have watched the source content if they were interested in it. If they weren't, they're not going to watch the clips anyway and will consider it as being offered something that's already rejected. That's not how it works. Many people simply don't watch anything above 10 minutes. Others do so only very sporadically. In fact, most don't even bother to watch or read the full thing and simply wait for the most popular clips to surface, and they'll watch those. When they want to share some part of the content with their friends, it's much easier to share the clip addressing the desired topic instead of the whole video and timestamping it. Short form versus long form. On one hand, there's a lot of talk about shortening attention spans and the predominance of short form content. On the other hand, there are 4-hour interviews with millions of views. So which is it? Simple math will show you that it's only logical that short form content has more views than long form content. The same way as more people make more 5-minute walks than 3-hour hikes every day. It's much faster to watch short form content, so it's watched more. That's it. It's also a fact that it's much easier for meh quality short form content to get a certain amount of views than meh quality long form content. If you want to go long form, make sure it will be worth it for the people to watch or listen to. Creating long form content has one huge advantage. You can use it to create a lot of short clips, and you don't have to put in that much effort. It's not unfair to say that it takes the same amount of time to write and record a 10-minute scripted monologue as it does for a 2-hour interview. There's also a limited number of these monologues that you can make. Unless you have an opinion about something out there or your expertise in the subject is so deep that you can talk nonstop. Interviews are much easier. You just prepare a set of questions, get an interesting guest, sit down, and 2 hours later, you have a great piece of content. Every person is different, so there's always something new to talk about. Doing a 2-hour interview will give you the chance to create 15 clips easily. Some will be just 20 seconds long and others will be 7 minutes, but that's 16 pieces of content compared to maybe 3 that you'd get out of a 10-minute monologue. Now let's compare the output from 10 of each. That would make 160 pieces of content from interviews versus 30 pieces of content from a 10-minute monologue. That's quite a difference. Keep in mind, if you produce quality content, being brutally effective and diligent with recycling can accelerate your career like you wouldn't believe. Not that fast. Hearing this, one may ask what dummy would do 10-minute monologues when he can do interviews that would take him the same amount of time, but produce more than 5 times more content. The most basic reason is that you will have almost zero chance of getting interesting guests when your channel has no content, no followers, and you're a no-name. You may get someone who will take pity on you, but it's unlikely that it will be a notable person who will bring you a lot of views. So the first step to getting interesting guests is to build an audience and a name for yourself. You can only do that by producing monologues where you share your expertise and opinions. The second point is that interviews aren't only about the person being interviewed. The host plays a significant role too. Who would you rather see to interview Elon Musk, some Johnny from the block, or Richard Branson? Go on YouTube and look for interviews with any well-known person. Notice how the numbers of views changes based on who the interviewer is. You don't want your guest to be the only reason why people watch your interviews. You want to play a role in that too. But again, to do that, you have to produce solo content first. Then, as your brand and reputation in the online space gradually grow, you will have an easier time getting to interview higher profile guests. Maybe you'll even get to the point where you can only do interviews and be able to fill up your whole social media posting schedule with them. Unless you plan to become a full-time influencer, we highly recommend that you keep posting your solo pieces too, because after all, you still want to demonstrate your primary expertise to your audience and potential clients. You don't want them to start considering you as a journalist. Maybe there is a way to keep doing interviews only, but you'll have to be very intentional about the interview topics and play a significant role in them. You won't be just asking simple questions and listening to the answers, but actively participate and make it more of a conversation that will allow you to clip some segments when you're talking about your thing so that you still have something to post to show people that you're actually a practitioner. What to clip? When your interview is produced, you'll have to decide which parts you'll cut and post as separate clips. Obviously, you should go for the most interesting parts without consideration for the clip length. Each clip should cover only one topic. It's not a problem if the guest goes off topic for a while, but try to keep it compact. If you have to, cut out the off-topic part. When choosing clips, consider how you'll title and brand the video. The title and thumbnail are crucial. These two things and your name are the only factors that will decide whether someone watches the video or not. Most clipped parts from the interviews are advice, opinions, powerful quotes, life stories, regrets, or mistakes. Your guests will too appreciate you publishing 12 pieces of content featuring them instead of just one. You can make this a part of your pitch when inviting them. Show them on previous guests how well you can work with content and how you can maximize the impact of whatever time they will dedicate to the interview. Recently, there has been a trend of clipping the most interesting 10 to 15 seconds second part of the interview and putting it right at the beginning of the video with "coming up" written over the clip. This will show viewers that they can look forward to and give them a good reason to keep watching. Since we're at it, here's one more tip. You can introduce the guest in 3 ways. First, you can ask the guest to introduce themselves. Second, you can do it for them at the beginning of the interview. Or third, you can record a voiceover with the guest bio and put on the screen a montage of the guest photos and appearances on TV or in other podcasts. Keep in mind, if you want to name the video in a very clickbaity way, especially if it's about a guest mistake or regret, it's good to double check whether he's all right with it. Newsletter. Bringing value or just staying in touch. Before we explain what a newsletter that brings value and people like to read should look like, we want to point out that some companies and creators treat the newsletter as nothing more than a "hey" message. They don't put much work into the emails, and the only goal is to occasionally appear in the recipient's inbox and remind them that they exist, until, of course, the recipient unsubscribes. This is the approach that we don't recommend, but wanted to mention. Frequency. An important feature of every newsletter is frequency. Besides defining how often you'll have to send it, it also influences people's willingness to subscribe or stay subscribed. If you'll be sending it out daily, you better make sure it provides value, because subscribers won't put up with having something that they don't like in their inbox every morning. Some newsletters have a certain frequency built into their logic. For example, daily news, weekly roundup, or a monthly report. Keep in mind, if you're not sure how often you'll be able to send your newsletter, it's still a good idea to specify it so that people know how often they can expect it. There's nothing wrong with sending it, for example, only every 2 months. Turning newsletter into a blog. Tools like Substack allow you to write a blog and distribute it as a newsletter at the same time, but you can also do this manually. Once you distribute the newsletter, whatever you put into it won't be forever forgotten. It will be available on your blog indefinitely. There's also a huge advantage when you're just starting out. Imagine your newsletter has 9 subscribers and you're supposed to spend hours creating something that will be read by 9 people at best, most of whom are presumably your friends or your close collaborators. That's not very motivating. But when you know this content will be out there for everyone to see in the form of a blog post, even after you send it as a newsletter to your 9 subscribers, it's much easier to justify spending that significant part of your day on it. If your newsletter is heavily news-oriented and these news have a very short expiration date, i.e. don't provide value for a very long time after they're written, the blog will serve a potentially different purpose. Potential subscribers will be able to easily check out how the newsletter looks and consider whether it's something that they'd like to receive on a regular basis. Content. As a creator, your newsletter will presumably be about news and insights from your industry. Most newsletters of this type are simply curating what's out there with some commentary. This basically means putting together and commenting on a few interesting articles, interviews, or social media posts. And this is what makes great newsletters great: the commentary. Curating news and insights isn't that difficult, but doing it in a way that captivates the audience and makes them excited every time the newsletter hits their inbox isn't that trivial. Make sure your newsletter has some character and wit, which will make reading the curated information a pleasant experience. If you can, make it quirky. If not, at least use a conversational tone and try to stay away from boring generic text as much as possible. If you want to integrate emojis, go for it. If you're wondering how to present the curated information, linking it directly to the source is perfectly fine. It doesn't matter that the articles or posts aren't yours. Structure. Here's what the content templates we mentioned in the previous module come in handy again, and they bring the same advantages: time efficiency, consistency, and predictability. Create a newsletter structure and stick to it all the way. It's always best to divide it into multiple sections. We like to use examples, so here's what a newsletter structure could look like. Section 1, Introduction. This section will introduce the reader to the newsletter, making its main theme or topic and connect it with the current time of the year or event everyone talks about. Section 2, the main topic. This section will address the newsletter's main topic. It includes an image and a 70-word summary with a read more link that takes the reader to the original source. Section 3, Side Topics. This section will address 3 or more news pieces or insights the reader will be interested in. It will include a 30-word summary and a read more link. Section 4, Fun Fact. This section will mention an interesting fact or stat from the industry. The headline will be written in at most 5 words in a distinctive font and have a 30-word description below. Section 5, Flashback. This section will include a title, Flashback, at the top, a headline of at most 8 words, an interesting 70-word story from the history of an industry the newsletter is about, and a historical image. Section 6, Outro. This section can summarize the trend of the topics mentioned in the newsletter, mention an important industry event coming up, or just wish the reader a great day. Outlining your newsletter like this will greatly help you write it without worrying about its structure, balance, or content type. It will also make it and you look professional because this is how the pros do things. Content creation tips. Representing your profession. Presuming you're not a well-known creator, it will take some time to build a reputation, and people will click on your content because it's you talking. Until you get there, there is a way to have a solid chance to attract a lot of clicks, even if you're literally anonymous. It all comes down to positioning yourself not as you, but as a representative of your profession. A great example is a lawyer who reached millions of people by reacting to and rating the authenticity of legal details from a popular TV show, Suits. The videos are titled along the lines of "Real Lawyer Reacts to Suits." Nobody cares about some John Doe thinks about the legal accuracy of Suits, but what does a real lawyer think about it? That sounds interesting. And the real lawyer may well be John Doe, but that doesn't matter. You can apply this same concept to almost every profession and spin it in many different ways. You don't have to react to TV shows or movies. You can pick something else. The advantage of TV shows and movies is that they are constantly being produced and watched, so there's always a new movie or TV show to react to and be the first one while already having an audience ready. Don't worry about not having your name mentioned in the title. You can do so in the video description, and people can easily find it in your profile too. Titles and thumbnails. Right after the content quality, naming and thumbnails of your videos will be the next deciding factor in how many people you'll reach. It applies mainly to videos, but you can also help your text posts by giving them a catchy first line that will be separated from the rest of the text, supplemented by an image that will catch the reader's attention if the beginning of the text won't. For creating them, we have only one piece of advice. Study how the best creators do this and copy the attributes of their titles and video thumbnails as closely as possible. Look at more of them and learn what they have in common. Don't bank on your creativity or gut feeling. Bank on what actually works for others. Experiments. Feel free to experiment with content templates as long as you maintain your production quality level. Stick to the content template principle mentioned in the 3rd lesson. When you figure out a new template, use it to create 3 to 5 pieces of content so you can better analyze its performance and don't get misled about its viability by producing only one piece that underperforms. Analysis. Using content templates makes it easier to analyze the performance of your experiments and your content in general. Looking closer at the numbers can show patterns and reveal what elements make content succeed or fail. Apart from views, look at their ratio to engagement, such as likes and comments. With videos, a very relevant metric is how much of a given video people watch, whether on average they see 80% of it or whether half of them leave within the first 10 seconds. Daily shows and Q&As. In the Daily Show, the title and thumbnail should communicate the most important topic you address in the video. Usually, it's the one you started the show with. Make clear transitions between the topics so you can clip each one afterwards. The title of a Q&A video should include 1 to 3 of the most interesting questions you answered. Keep in mind, producing long-form daily shows is a full-time job and it's difficult to break through. We recommend addressing specific topics in separate videos where you're not tied by duration requirements and publishing frequency of the daily show. Careful with creativity. And now, our usual word of caution, this time about trying to be super creative. If you ask any web developer, designer, or branding specialist about the worst kind of client, they'll probably tell you it's the overconfident creative type. Some people pride themselves in being very creative, feel very strongly about their ideas, and can't stand being confronted. The problem is that these ideas are often the opposites of best practices unless they understand the practical side of web design and branding. If applied, they would greatly damage the website or brand in question. The person doesn't understand how a given thing works and therefore is unaware of how ridiculous their creative ideas are. We use this analogy to illustrate what we want you to avoid doing with content creation if you happen to be this creative type. When you see that most successful content out there has many things in common, it's not because the creators lack creativity, it's because that approach works. We suggest you do the same. Learn from the best and do what they do. If you want to plug in something of your own, make sure it doesn't contradict or sabotage any of the best practices. If you're not confident, you can make that judgment. Limit your creativity to a minimum. Using your native language. If you aren't from an English-speaking country, create content in your language unless you have a very good reason to use English. No offense, but your English isn't probably good enough to capture English-speaking audiences without automatically looking less competent because of your accent. Maybe it sounds harsh, but that's how it is. On the other hand, smaller countries have much less competition and lack quality content in their language, which makes it easier to break through. It's also unlikely that your network will interact with English content. This is especially true on LinkedIn. Keep in mind, talking to a camera is very challenging for most people, even in their mother tongue, let alone an acquired one.